Good morning, students. I am Munsi Rushdil Islam, Assistant Professor of Department of Mechanical Engineering, JIS College of Engineering. Now, I am going to present a new topic, and that topic is under the design of clutch. So today we have discussed about the points. That point is design of single and multiple clutch, multiple plate clutch. So we have already discussed in the lecture of the first lecture of clutch. Okay, that also the second lecture of clutch. So in first lecture we have already discussed all the points that are mainly depends on the various types of theories. That theory is mainly included in the design of any type of clutch, just like single plate clutch, multiple clutch, cone clutch, and centrifugal clutch. Now, in this lesson and in this lecture, we can discuss the design of single plate clutch and multiple clutch, and we means I also elaborate one or two problems. That problem mainly based on the single plate clutch and multiple clutch, how the problems can be solved by the application of this design. Now, so let us see the what are the difference theory that I already mentioned, that I already discussed. So mainly two types of theories are there in clutches. So one theory is uniform pressure theory and another is uniform wear theory. And design consideration will be considered, that is actually the friction material that I used for the purpose of the design of single and multiple clutches. So for that point of view, we can obviously told you that the friction material have some good friction properties. Otherwise, plate single and multiple plate clutch design will not cover up properly. So that point of view, we can discuss the friction material and material plate. Plate properties must be a good quality. Otherwise, the plate would be worn out if the friction will be high. So, so for that cases, we obviously considered some design consideration. That design consideration will be based on the different process of different fundamental point of view. That different fundamental point of view is actually the power and torque that is actually transmitted through the clutch must be accurately known. Number one point. Number 2 point is suitable friction material with proper friction lining and with proper friction properties must be chosen. Otherwise, if you are not selected the proper material, you cannot go through the proper design of the clutches. So friction should be able, frictional material should be able to retain the frictional properties during the service life. And point number three, there should be a provision the adjustment of worn out of the friction plate or surfaces. And next point is obviously the point of clutch mechanism. That clutch mechanism based on the different engagement and disengagement position. When the engagement position means when the point when the car or the vehicles are in running conditions, that obviously the plates are in contact positions. But in the disengagement position, that means we press the pedal, and there should be a small gap between the driving shaft to the driven shaft, or specifically in the gap will be created between the two plates. That is the actually disengagement position. And now next point is the design should be in such cases. That cases is with the proper dimensions of the carrying of the weight of each plate. That plate must be generated some heat. That heat will be dissipated to the atmosphere with some time, and that time will be considered as a energy equation when I calculate it. That is actually the case of the design consideration of single plate clutch and multiple clutch design. Now next point is some points are there. That point most probably that point also be repeated because in past lesson I already show you a video. That video is actually some points are there. That points means all these points are in these slides also be there. So for that cases we just overview some points. That point also be required to design the clutch. So first one is clutch plate. So clutch plate, that is actually the most important point. That point is the without clutch no single plate or multiple disc design will be happen. So first of all, plate is required, and plate is required means plate or disc. Plate or disc is required. Otherwise, no function will happen. So class plate is actually the surface with some certain distance, and that two plates are in engaged position when the vehicles or the car are in running conditions. And if it if the disengagement position, that means they are not connected properly. That is actually the clutch facing. That facing is required to create some gap. That gap is that means the uh, cover up the whole clutch mechanism where it is happened. So clutch facing is actually the cover up the whole mechanism of the clutch system. That is actually clutch facing. Pressure plate means one plate is required. That the plate is actually the metallic part, obviously a metallic part, and that part is situated over the entire periphery of the plate. So that plate is mostly situated in the small portion of the whole plate periphery. So that is actually called as a pressure plate, and that pressure plate the pressure will be supplied, or the pressure will be created on the surface of the pressure plate. And next, spring. Mainly, here are the compression type spring is required, and that spring is actually required when the paddle is pressed, or pressing conditions, or unlocking conditions. Lock and press means if we apply the pedal, that means the press spring are in compressed conditions, and then if you release the load, spring is go back to the original shape. And that's why helical compression type spring is used for that type of design of clutch. And last one is bearing obviously used for the purpose of some getting relative motion, and that relative motion obviously transmitted to the one shaft to the another shaft, and obviously in terms of the clutch function. Next point is uh, sorry uh, next point is some typical type friction material are there. Some typical type material, that material is actually fast mill board type material. That material is asbestos sheet, that is actually treated with some certain impregnants. Next is molded type, and that is also a mixed asbestos type with binding material. Next is oven type. Oven type, that is also combined with cloths and the binder. And next is solid oven variety. Solid oven variety means the cloth is oven to required thickness. The cloth is oven to required thickness. That is actually the solid oven variety. Now next point is laminated variety. Laminated variety means layers of cloths one upon the other are held together by a binder. That means if we can use a binder, we can easily combine a laminated variety. That variety material is used for the friction material, and that also be very beneficial for that type of design of single and multiple class, when the material selection is very important. That is the main criteria of single and multiple clutch. And stitches are provided in addition to the binders. So that is actually the types of friction materials. Now next point is principle of operation, how it can operate properly. So number one point is the clutch works on principle of friction. The clutch works on the principle of friction. Number one point. Number point number two. When the two surfaces are brought into contact, when the two surfaces are brought into contact with each other, and the phrased they are united due to friction between them. Now next point is the friction depends on area of contact. That I already know that the or you also we know that the friction material, the area of contact is very important. Pressure applied, that also be very important point upon them, and coefficient of friction on the surface of the material. So here are the 3 points. That 3 points are very important. Number one, area of contact, pressure applied, and last one is coefficient of friction on the surface of the material. Now next point, the two surfaces can be separated and brought into contact when required. Brought into contact when required. Now, next point is one is considered as driving member. Obviously, I already told just 2 3 slides before. I told that the one driving member is required and another is driven member also be required. Two member is not connected properly, the total mechanism will not fulfill the total mechanism. So one is considered as a driving member and the other is considered as a driven member. So the driving member is kept rotating, and when the driven member is brought into contact with the driving member, it also starting rotating. So that means the driving member, that also that is actually connected to the some power source, and the driven member is not connected to the power source. If the driving member is rotating, then he connect to the driven member, and for the inertia of the driving member, second member, that means the driven member also be rotate. And last point is when the driven member is separated, when the driven member is separated from the driving member, so it does not revolve. That means just vice versa of that point. That means if driven member is rotated, but it cannot be rotate to it cannot be possible to rotate a driving member. That is actually the case, and that is not possible in actual practice. Now, this is the formula of single plate clutch. First one is uniform pressure theory, and in this theory, we know that the total pressure distribution on the plate or disc, the total pressure distribution will be constant. That means total intensity of pressure above the plate, that is actually P. P is equal to constant. So total axial load on the clutch, total axial load on the clutch, W is equal to pi PR, pi PR into RO square minus RI square, RO square minus RI square. Now total torque transmitted, capital T is equal to two third of mu into W, two third of mu into W, RO Q minus RI Q whole by RO square minus RI square. So T is equal to T is equal to mu WR. T is equal to mu WR. Now, the next point is effective mean radius. Effective mean radius, that I know from the first lecture of clutch portion. So that means R is equal to two third of RO cube minus RI cube whole by RO square minus RI square. Now, one typical problem. For that problem, we can conclude that how the problems can be solved. So in this problem, we can see that one problem is there. So that problem can be solved by the applying formula. That formula is actually based on as per the derivation. So the problem is a single plate clutch having one pair of contacting surface. So one pair of contacting surface means that pair is very very important. If you are not mentioned the pair, that means it is incomplete response, incomplete in question, because pair means when the two plates are engaged, means if single disk is mentioned, that is not used properly. You have to mention pair of contacting surface. So pair of contacting surfaces transmit a maximum torque of 150 Newton meter. The maximum permissible contact pressure, that that means intensity of pressure, and the mating surface is given by 600 kPa. That means intensity of pressure small p is equal to 600 kPa, and coefficient of friction is limited to zero point 0.3. So mu is equal to zero point 0.3. If a factor of safety is 2, when it is to be considered in design, that means friction is mu is equal to zero point 0.3 and factor of safety FOS is equal to 2. So calculate the size of the clutch plate and assume uniform wear theory in the design calculation. Sure. So for the design calculation, we can use the uniform wear theory formula. We cannot require, we could not require the uniform pressure theory. Only use uniform wear theory for that type of problem solve. So first is all the given data that is actually given in the problem. First of all, you have to write all the data and then apply formula of uniform wear theory, and then you can use or calculate the all problems. So first one, the given problem is total torque transmitted maximum 150 Newton meter. So that means MT, M suffix T, MT is equal to 150 Newton meter. Next, maximum permissible contact pressure between the, that means the intensity of pressure. So small pa is equal to 600 kPa. That means 600 into 10 to the power minus 3 Newton per millimeter square. Next, coefficient of friction mu is equal to 0.3, and factor of safety K is FOS is equal to 2. So first of all, according to the uniform wear theory that I know in the formula, so total torque transmitting capacity, that is actually MT, M suffix T. You have to be remember the all formula, otherwise you cannot solve this type of problem. So derivation is must, but in solving the all problems, you have to remember all the formulas. So according to the uniform wear theory, the total torque transmitting capacity MT is equal to mu P into P max, mu P into P max into D by 8, and equation will be d square minus d square. That means capital D by small d. That ratio you have to mention, and that ratio is calculated as per the conditions of maximum torque. So that is actually d by d is equal to 1.732. So small d by capital D is equal to 1 by root 3. That means d square is equal to capital D square is equal to some equation will be there. So some equation will be there. So if the one equation will come, then you have to find out, or you have to apply the quadratic equation, and then quadratic equation you can solve and find out the ultimate dimension. That dimension also be required, because the question is actually calculate the size of the clutch plate. So you have to calculate the dimensions of clutch plate. That is actually the case of single plate clutch with uniform wear theory. Now next slide is working principle of a multiple clutch. Single plate clutch and multiple clutch, both the function are almost same. Difference is that in single plate clutch, not more than the two discs are required, but in multiple clutch more than two plate or disc are connected in such a way that the total contacting pair obviously is one minus than the total number of discs. So suppose total number of discs in driving shaft is 5, and total number of discs in driven shaft, that is actually 4. So total number of pair of contacting surface, that will be 4 plus 5. That means total summation of driving shaft and driven shaft minus 1. That means 4 plus 5 minus 1. That is actually the case of the uh, uh, multiple clutch, and but all the design remaining part will be same. So now the working principle. Multiple clutch consists of a number of clutch plates instead of only one clutch plate, as in case of single plate clutch. Next point, as the number of plate clutch is increased, as the number of plate clutch is increased, so total the number of friction surfaces, which increases the capacity of the clutch, which increases the capacity of the clutch to transmit torque. Now point number 3, the plates are alternatively fixed. The plates are alternatively fixed to the engine shaft and gearbox shaft. The plates are alternatively fixed to the engine shaft and gearbox shaft. Next point. They are firmly pressed by strong coil. They are firmly pressed by strong coil spring and assembled in a drum. Assembled in a drum. Now, next point is each of the alternative plate slides in the groove of the flywheel and other slides of the splines of the pressure plate. That means the pressure plate always carry all the weight of the attached accessories of the clutch, and then the alternative plates have inner and outer splines. And last point is the multiple plate clutch. Plate clutch works in same way as the single plate clutch. So that point, and that I already mentioned, and that point I already explained that the mechanism or the function are almost same. No difference will be there. Only the number of plates quantity is different. So, so by operating the clutch pedal, multiple clutch is used as heavy vehicles. Multiple clutch is used for heavy vehicles, racing car, etc., where more torque is to be transmitted. So more torque is to be transmitted for the purpose of the high quality torque, and that is actually heavy vehicles and racing car conditions. So that is the principles of single and multiple clutch. And now the design of multiple plate clutch. So if the n is equal to total number of friction plates in the multiple clutch, so total number of pair of contact surfaces, that will be n minus 1, and total torque will be n minus 1. N minus 1, then that means that n is equal to total number of disc in driving shaft and driven shaft minus 1, and into mu into w into r, that is actually the total torque. Next, we apply the two theories. The two theories are the uniform pressure theory, and that means n minus 1 into 2/3 of mu into w rho cube minus ri cube whole by rho square minus ri square. That is actually the case of uniform pressure theory. And second one is uniform wear theory. That is also a one simple form equation. That equation is T is equal to n minus 1 into w ri plus rho by 2. That is actually the equation of multiple plate clutch. And now last one problem also be a one problem. That problem is on the multiple plate clutch. So as I told you that, I already told you that the multiple plate clutch and single plate clutch, both the numerical or design process will be same. Only the main difference is the pair of contacting surface. So just I see the total number of pair of contacting surface that in a that explain in problem. So the problem is a multiple plate clutch is to be engaged in the motorcycle whose engine develops torque of a total number of pair. Now, yes, that problem is actually the problem. Calculate the number of plates. Just you have to cross check the problem. You have to apply all the formula. Only z you have to multiply it, and your work, your task is to be find out the total number of plates. That means uh, total number of plates is to be found out. So all the data are also given. All the data are given, but you have to calculate only the total number of plates. So that is actually in the case of problem based on the multiple disc clutch. So that is also the total conclusion part of the single plate clutch and multiple clutch. Now we can conclude that in this chapter or in this lesson we know that single plate clutch two theories, multiple clutch two theories, and how to solve the problem in single plate clutch and multiple clutch. So thank you for this lesson. Now next class, in the upcoming class we can discuss with the new topic. Thank you.